can get it working for tomorrow. If we'll have a time, we will.
We got all the ninth graders to pitch in tomorrow. I mean,
Moving forward. All right, we're going to complete the square. This is a general polynomial. You have to know how to do this, okay? And you'll see why in a minute. We can assume nothing. We cannot assume that A equals 1. We have to assume that A doesn't equal 1. So in order for me to complete the square, to ensure that I have a coefficient of A being 1, what do I need to do to this polynomial? Divide everything by A. So I start with A squared plus BX plus C equals 0. I divide everything by A after I move the C to the other side. All we're going to do now is follow the steps of completing the square. Okay? We're just using variables. Are you guys okay with this? This simplifies down to x squared plus b over ax equals, I'm going to leave a little space here, negative c over a. Okay? What's my next step in completing the square? So we're going to take BA over A, and we're going to multiply it by a half, and we're going to get B over, and don't we put a cloud around this one? This is our cloud. And what do I do now? So I take B over 2A, and I square it, and what do I get? And now, according to my pattern that I've always been doing for that entire worksheet, what is my next thing that I do? Okay, so that gives me x squared plus b over ax plus b squared over 4a squared equals, and here I'm putting this in front, b squared over 4a squared minus c over a. Now, I put this in front of the negative c over a because I don't want my first term to be negative, right? Order doesn't matter, correct? Because I'm just adding. Okay. So now we're going to factor the left side. And we know that this is going to be x what? Quantity squared, correct? And I have to get a common denominator when I add fractions, wouldn't you agree? And what would my common denominator be? Which means my second fraction, the negative c over a, has to be multiplied numerator and denominator by what value? 4a over 4a. So combining this now, I get b squared minus what? Get it in the right order. All over? Correct. Are we good with this? Well, isn't this 4ac? Over ax plus our squared term. Don't we always add the squared term to both sides? That's all I did. And now I'm getting a common denominator so that I can combine this as one fraction. Okay? So that means I'm going to rewrite it. I have x plus b over 2a squared is equal to b squared minus 4ac all over 4a squared. What is my next process that I need to do? How would I simplify? Square root both sides. X equals x plus b over 2a equals what? You can never take the square root of individual terms. It's the square root of a numerator or a denominator. So what would I write? Square root of b squared minus 4ac over, I'm going to do this, the square root of 4a squared. And don't forget your plus and minus. So the numerator, I keep it at x minus b over 2a. And I get plus and minus. This cannot be simplified, this numerator, correct? But Rachel agreed that this can be 2a, because this is one term, and the square root of 4 is 2, and the square root of a squared is a. because I forgot my plus. And so now, what do I do to solve for x? X equals negative b over 2a plus and minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac over 2a, or negative b plus and minus the square root of b squared minus all over,
No way.
also known as the,
Oh, much easier not having to go.
but the quadratic formula comes from taking a general polynomial with no numerical coefficients and going through the process of completing the square. You need to know this. Now you know. Yay. Emma? Because it's right here, and when you have a common denominator, you can put it over one denominator, right? Okay. Is this making sense? Okay. You didn't see it coming? Okay. Who could see what I was doing? All right. Good. All right. So after this, it's really easy. Okay? We're going to just plug in the numbers for the quadratic formula. What is A? What is B? What is C? You can only find this information when it's set equal to 0. If your equation is not set equal to 0, you cannot identify the A, the B, or the C. Okay? So, negative B plus and minus the square root of B squared minus 4AC all over 2A are my values for X. They are my zeros. These are the zeros, also known as where the graph crosses the, this is where the graph crosses x-axis. Okay, so this is negative 2 plus and minus the square root of 4. What am I doing to this 4? Adding or subtracting 60? So if you make a mistake, it is what do I do with that second portion? Am I adding that value or subtracting? So cover up the 4 and take a look at all the negative signs. Okay, what are we passing around? A petition to not take the quiz? I'm still going to give you the quiz. Plus 60 over 6. Well, but you're getting distracted from what we're trying to do. Okay? So negative 2 plus and minus the square root of 64 over 6 gives me negative 2 plus and minus 8 over 6. Don't ever leave an answer like this. This is not in simplest form. Alex knows now how to do this one. What do we do, guys? What do I do, Alex? I come up with 2, right, options. What are my options? And? Yes. Which gives me 1 and, right. See? If it's set equal to 0, I can come through and solve. All right? I'm just going to have you do one on your own. I think you guys probably are okay with this quadratic formula. Would you do, please, this one right here? Yes, it is. It is good for you to identify what A, B, and C are. And you can't do this unless it's set equal to, which means the 6 comes to the left before you identify your A, your B, and your C. Are we right? Am I right? Okay. So this is kind of just a plug and chug, right? Okay, that's fine. Well, what happens if you get a negative root? You get an I. You get an I with a negative root, don't you? Maybe. Okay, maybe.
Before you jump to solutions, make sure you're
That you didn't do an incorrect sign.
I was doing homework. I got negative under a square root. I was like, oh, she like went to do the I thing. I was like, no, you did not.
Okay. Are we okay with this? Who's not okay? Yeah. It is negative 6 over 2, which is negative 3. But remember, it's not equal to 0, Alex, so you can't use it yet. You got to pull that 6 to the left, which changes this sign. Better? Okay. Okay, so here we go. Are you good now? Okay. So, why do we do this? This is a method to give us some answers. Not all answers come to real numbers, okay? Some of our answers are square roots, and some of our answers can be imaginary. But if we're using the quadratic formula, we have a quadratic equation. And the shape of a quadratic equation is a what? A parabola. And a parabola can cross the axis in different ways. It can cross it twice. It could cross it once. If it's the no-B method, it doesn't cross at all. Okay? So what we do is we're analyzing all this information to help us graph this properly. So the part that's under the square root, the b squared minus the 4ac, is called the discriminant. And that tells us what kind of solutions we have. So think about it. If that value is greater than 0, which means positive, like 6 plus or minus 2 over 3. So the value under your square root is positive. Doesn't that make sense that the graph would cross the axis in two areas, right? It would be 6 plus the square roots of 2 and 6 minus the square roots of 2, which would give me two values on the x-axis, correct? Okay. If it's negative, like 6 minus square roots of negative 3, which is 6 minus square roots of 3i. This is not a graphable value on the xy axis. This is what's called an extraneous solution. It doesn't give us a solution that we can graph. Okay? So all we're looking at right now is at the b squared minus 4ac. So if it's negative, we can't graph it. That means our graph doesn't cross the x-axis at all. Okay? If it's equal to 0, 6 plus or minus the square root of 0 over whatever, isn't that just going to give me how many solutions? 1, because this drops out, doesn't it? I don't have anything to add or subtract to my 6, so I get only one solution. And the graph just touches the x-axis. Okay? So, I want you to be able to identify and tell me what the discriminant is. Not solve the quadratic formula. Just tell me what the discriminant is. So solving b squared minus 4ac. Knowing what that is, if it's positive, we know we have two answers. If it's negative, we have two imaginary answers. If it's 0, we have one real answer. Okay? And let's look at this. So if this is what my graph looks like, what is my discriminant going to be? Is it going to be less than 0, greater than 0, or equal to 0? Why? Because it's going to be greater than 0. Exactly. If it does this, What is my discriminant? Haley, you need to know this. It's not in the book. What is this going to be? What's my discriminant going to be? It's the discriminant is going to be less than 0 because I'm getting I. And I'm not getting a place where my graph is crossing the x-axis. And it's never going to cross the x-axis because my tails are going continually down. Okay? If it does this, or even this, what is my discriminant? 0. The discriminant equals 0 because I get only one real number. Only one real number. And the only way to get one real number is in this case. Are you following this? Okay. Okay. Michelle, what was your question? Absolutely. It could go this way or this way. Just like this one could go this way or this way. All right, I'm just giving you one example. Yes? Okay, good. See up here, look. This is the discriminant right there, the part under the root. Okay, so let's figure out what the discriminant is. So, again, I can't figure it out unless it's set equal to? All right, so 7x squared minus 2x minus 5 equals 0. I'm looking at b squared minus 4ac. That's all I want. I'm not asking you to solve. I want to know what the discriminant is. So that's going to be 4 minus 4 times 7 times negative, which in our mind is what? Positive or negative? Okay. So it's going to be 4 plus, how much? So this is 144, which is greater than 0. So that tells me how many solutions will I have? 2 real. If I had to draw that on my graph, I would say that it would do that, right? X squared is positive, tails go up. Discriminant is positive, touches in 2 places. I don't care where you place it. I just want the basic idea. Okay, Haley? No, it's just basically, give me a sketch. What's it going to look like? Okay. Let's do this last one down here. This is not in the correct order to determine what the discriminant is. I get negative 5x squared plus 10x minus 5 equals 0 when I pull everything to the other side. Agreed? Yes? You good with this? Or did I make a mistake? Okay, so b squared minus 4ac is 100 minus 100, which equals 0. And yes, you can take 5 out if you would have noticed that. So what is this going to look like if I have to sketch this graph? And which way is it going to point? There you go. Well, how do you know? This is a quadratic. Look at this. We graph quadratics. The a is negative.